In this interview, we are going to be talking about the destruction, maybe even the collapse of the United States dollar. We're going to be talking more importantly about how to make money right now, gold. We're going to be talking about silver. We're going to be talking about precious metals. We're even going to talk a bit about uranium. So the next wave of the gold and silver market is about to blow up, and there's going to be what I believe is a huge opportunity during this wealth transfer. I think there is one, maybe two, maybe three of the best analysis and the best researchers and the best teaching investors on the internet. And I think there's a couple of them. I think Steve Penny, who's on here today, is probably number one. You may know him as Silver Chartist. The reason Steve is so amazing is because he does literally over the shoulder, every move he makes, every trade he makes, what he's buying in silver, what he's buying in gold. And to be honest, I've been online on the internet and online business for 5-6 years. And when Steve put together Silver Chartist, which there's a link, you need to go right now to the free newsletter. It's in the description right there down below, and you'll see it pinned to the comments as well. So it's a free newsletter. And when I signed up for it, I just thought, I'm in the online space. I see them all the time. And I wrote Steve right after I signed up. I said, dude, this is like the best service I've ever seen, man. Like, this is amazing. And so for everyone listening, let's welcome Steve, AKA Silver Chartist. Please go right now and do yourself a favor and sign up for the free newsletter if you see the amazing opportunity investing in commodities, especially gold, silver, uranium, precious metals. So welcome.
All right, Jake. Well, thank you so much for that kind introduction. And just to be honest with you, I mean, I'm continually learning from the content that you put out, the guests that you have on your show. The guests you have are just phenomenal, and I'm continually learning. And it's a privilege and it's an honor to be able to come on and visit with you and share my thoughts with your audience. So thank you for having me.
Okay, so first, Silver Chartist is your brand. Silver Chartist is really you're a teacher. You are a teacher that has organized their content and their knowledge and their investments in a really good way, probably the best on the internet so far that I've seen in the commodities and metal space. And so in your research right now, what do you see what does Silver Chartist see going on right now in the global economy, and especially as it pertains to gold and silver? We had that run up to 2000. Last time we talked, it's the metals have slipped even a little bit more. Sentiment has turned to apocalyptic. So what's going on right now in the market, and what does Silver Chartist see?
Yeah, and I'll start big to small with that question. So from a big picture perspective, where are we headed in 2021? And 2020 was obviously one for the record books. I mean, we have printed more money in the past few months than in the previous years combined. And that is just the early stages of a trend that is set to accelerate in 2021. Debt monetization, currency creation, deficit spending, and to include the growth and overreach of governments, unfortunately, is a trend that is only going to accelerate in 2021. Now, you and I don't have a sphere of influence that extends to Washington. There's very little we can do about that. But there are steps that we can take to prepare ourselves financially and set ourselves up to prosper in this environment. So in this environment where they are going to print more money in 2021 than they did in 2020, it's just simple math. And the dollar is going to continue to lose value. Fiat currencies are going to continue to lose value. So the way to position ourselves is in hard assets, namely silver, uranium, and gold. Silver Chartist is our brand is specifically focused on those three commodities. We have a laser focus on those things. And it's interesting that uranium has just skyrocketed the last few weeks. And we've been talking about that for a couple of months to our members, trying to get everyone prepared. Hey, now's the time to accumulate these uranium miners, because when it goes, it's going to go quick. It is such a small market. And one thing that's really interesting is someone who's much wiser and older than me once told me, accumulate quiet markets. And the time to accumulate uranium stocks was over the last few months. Well, if you look at silver and gold right now and their mining stocks, they look very similar to uranium over the past 3 months. They were just trending down from their peak in early in the summer. And I think silver and gold are setting up for a really explosive move to the upside, very similar to what we just saw in uranium. And as I say that, I don't want to imply that the uranium, that's it for uranium. I think we are in the very early stages of the uranium bull market, and we're still clearly in the early innings of all three of these bull markets.
Yeah, it's interesting watching people on Twitter. It seems to be a common theme of people that invest in metals and commodities in general is like after it has a little like move where, maybe the index goes up 50, 75, 100%. Everyone says everyone's talking about it now. I want to be a contrarian. It's oversold. You should have been in here 4 months ago. But what's exciting to me is if you're really objective and you look at the macro, I don't think either of these are in the first inning. So let me ask you, as it pertains to gold and silver, how has your view shifted as we've continued to even trend more downward? Now nobody wants it, and there's a lot of people that were bulls that have become bears or frustrated bulls. So are you less bullish on it than you were before? Where do you think we stand, and why do you think we haven't moved yet?
So the contrarian in me loves this. I love it when sentiment is down. I love it when it's hated. I typically don't like assets that are being talked about on the news and everyone's uber bullish on. So I love it. I think we are in a perfect buy zone here in silver, gold, and uranium. Now, it's an unfortunate reality in bull markets that as bull markets mature, shares of quality companies and physical metal, in the case of silver and gold, change hands from weak hands to strong hands, so that at the end, very few people hold the metal and hold the shares. And those are the ones with the highest conviction. And unfortunately, it's typically the retail investor, the average mom and pop, the average everyday family person who ends up selling out their shares at the exact wrong time. And it's the smart money that ends up with all the money at the end. So that's part of our mission at Silver Chartist, is to educate everyday people so that we can make wise decisions and know that, look, this is normal. The very nature of a bull market is to shake loose as many retail participants as possible. That's what bull markets do. That's why they call it a bull market. It tries to shake you loose. So now is not the time to be selling your silver and gold or your mining stocks.
What do you think we re-nickname you Stronghand Steve? So, all right, good. So, yeah, it's crazy to watch things that people like you teach, and that on all your newsletters and all your posts, you and on our last conversation is reiterating that, the real nature of what a bull market is in anything and shaking people loose. But it's another thing to see it really, really play out in real life. And so why do you think that it hasn't changed? Like, let me ask you, we talked last time about how you overstayed your welcome in the last market. And we had a good laugh about it because it's everyone's worst nightmare. That's why I was laughing. Although some guy on Twitter, he thought I was bullying you by laughing at you for it. But why do you think that this isn't the same thing this time around?
Great question. So eventually, silver, gold, and uranium will be a massive bubble. They will, and we'll see probably a sharp decline at the end. But we're a long ways from that. And that's something that we should always keep in mind is, we want to have an exit strategy. And
why isn't this the end for metals, for gold and silver specifically, though?
Great question. So going back to 2011, here's why this is different fundamentally. Mm-hmm. In 2011, who listening remembers the Tea Party? Remember those guys? Mm-hmm. Remember the fiscal cliff? We're going to do austerity, all this stuff. They were able to, the dollar in this system is based on confidence. They were able to reinstill some confidence in the system by saying all those things. These Tea Party guys, we're going to cut the deficits and everything. Well, where are they now? They're gone. They're silent. They're hypocrites, all of them. There's maybe 3 or 4 people that are talking about this. It's not even an issue anymore. So there's no Tea Party coming in to say, hey, we're going to rein in the deficits. We're going to fix things. And if they say that stuff, no one's going to believe them this time. And then if you even go back to the 1970s bull market at the end, What ended that bull market? Well, Paul Volcker came in and raised interest rates to like 19%. Well, you just can't do that this time. It is mathematically impossible, because imagine 20% interest on $27 trillion debt. That would be over $5 trillion of interest payments. They don't even collect that much in tax revenue. So that can't happen. So it is different. What we're seeing right now is different than what ended the previous two bull markets.
Man, that is so interesting if you think about that. And so a lot of people, there's a lot of people screaming manipulation, right? But I've talked to a lot of interesting people on the show, and someone I told you I had Luke Grauman on yesterday, and he was saying just the reality is that 10-year treasuries went up. But he was saying the Fed actually can't let that happen at all. It has to actually go the opposite way. Mm-hmm. And they have to force it the opposite way. And so I thought that was really interesting. And then he said, at the end of the day, they actually need that to occur. So let me ask you, what do you see happening in 2021?
Yeah, so you bring up an important point with interest rates. For years, I've been saying there are two things that can lead to the fast demise of the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency. And number one would be a rise in interest rates that the Fed cannot allow to happen. They can't. With their national debt right now is roughly $27 trillion. So every 1% rise in interest rates is $270 billion a year in extra interest payments on the debt. So that they can't let that happen. And then the other thing that could take down the dollar would be an end to the petrodollar system, whereby OPEC, namely Saudi Arabia, sells their oil in dollars, creating an artificial demand around the world for U.S. dollars. The world needs dollars because they need it to buy oil. And that system could come to an end. We don't know when, but I suspect it will. So where are we heading in 2021 with all of this? I agree. With Luke. I don't think interest rates cannot be allowed to rise. They just can't, and because that would bring the system down much faster than anyone, probably including myself, would expect.
So then, what do you think that they do? So we're in this. Luke called it an air pocket, which I thought was an interesting analogy. We're in this air pocket between stimulus, gold and silver starting to go south. Outside of metals specifically, you've got the UN said this summer 250 million people would be pushed into poverty from the lockdowns. And that was over summer before there was even going to be a second wave of lockdowns. So you got to think maybe it's double that. I don't know. And then, we knew all the data, 75% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, like almost like the average one can't come up with $500 for an emergency. And now you've got food bank lines. I mean, I don't know if I ever told you, I lived in Maui for 3 years, and I saw a video just the other day of the area I frequented, food bank lines, I don't know, probably like 7 or 8 hours long. And, oh my gosh. And so to me, my stance on, we've talked offline, how I view the world and the monetary system. And there's a lot of people that are in the gold and silver space that, would criticize a stimulus. Dude, I'm at the point I think it's a humanitarian issue. They've already ruined the system. I mean, they're not going to not ruin it by stopping. And I think they've got to get this done. I'm shocked they haven't. And I'm starting to wonder if they're not going to do it. You've seen Citibank or JP Morgan now say they expect only $800 billion in stimulus in 2021. They changed their tone on gold because of that. But what do you see happening? And what are your thoughts on it?
Well, first of all, I agree. I can tell your heart goes out to these everyday people who are suffering, and I sympathize with them too. I mean, whenever I go out, to a shopping center or whatever, I just look at these small businesses and I wonder, how many of these guys are going to be here, and how much time and energy did they put into building up this business? Do they have children to take care of? So yeah, it's incredibly sad. So as far as where I see this going with the stimulus, I mean, they can say whatever they want. They're going to do a big stimulus package, whether that's rolled out in separate stages or just one big one. Who knows? But from a big picture perspective, they're going to do it. And as far as doing the right thing, I agree with you. I mean, my principles say, hey, the government shouldn't just print money and give it to people. But the system is so messed up that to do the right thing now and go back to actual fiscal responsibility and monetary responsibility would be so painful. There's no easy way out of this. So what do you do now? Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see some. You know what I'd like to see for a stimulus is just send checks straight to the people.
Yes.
Forget the Wall Street people. Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah, I saw some stat on the first bailout or stimulus package. I can't remember, but it was roughly that it cost the average taxpayer something like $50,000, but we get $1,200, and then we say thank you, thanks for the $1,200. But that's now we're each individual is more in debt by $50,000. That's going to have to be repaid through inflation or taxes. So I'm not sure if I answered your question there.
Yeah, no, I was just curious on your thoughts because it has to do a lot with gold and it has to do a lot with silver. And it's been interesting to watch how people's views have changed. It's almost as if people are so caught up in the hysteria of 2020 that they haven't been able to objectively look at the larger macroeconomic and social situation that we find ourselves in that already existed before 2020. And I'd love to see them just send it direct. At this point, man, there's too many people. Like it's a national security issue at this point because you can't. I think let the banks fail in that if you're going to reset the system, you'd basically have to clear debt and then have a new sound monetary system, which would wipe the banks out. But I'm like, dude, let them wipe themselves out. And so then we're getting into politics, but let's stay here on the subject because the reason that's brought me to gold and silver and the reason I tell everyone I made a strong pitch for every single viewer to go to your newsletter. And I didn't just do that for no reason. I think this is the greatest wealth transfer in history. And I think the only way to prepare, people say, Jake, life's not all about money. If you're objective enough, other than your own health and your own relationships, it is the most important thing in the world right now. And if you understand I believe, if you understand what's happening in precious metals, if you understand what's happening in miners, I like silver more, if you understand what's happening in uranium, I really believe that you can massively double, triple, quadruple, 10x, maybe more. I mean, shoot, who knows? Your own net worth, which you can do a lot of good things with. You can build a sustainable lifestyle, help other people out, retire your mom or your dad that lost their job over you could do so many things. And so everyone, I want to remind you right now, if you haven't yet, to go to the link in the description and at least sign up for the free newsletter and get prepared. Like his free newsletter is better than people's paid newsletters. And it's just like Steve's personality, in the Air Force and got that mind screwed on right. And so I want to encourage everyone to go to the link in the description right now and prepare yourself for the greatest wealth transfer in history. The links in the comments and the description. And so if we bring it to that subject, Steve, of the wealth transfer opportunity, silver chartist, etc., let me ask you, what do you think the end game is for gold and silver?
So just to piggyback on a couple of comments you made, I agree. Well, money makes a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. And if you use it wisely, I mean, you can do wonderful things with it. Money is a neutral object. It's not good or bad or evil. And you can do wonderful things to help people with money. So agree with you on that 100%. And as far as the wealth transfer, again, I agree. And it's a common misconception that, when markets crash or you have big sell-offs, things like that, that wealth is destroyed. Wealth is not destroyed. It's merely transferred. And it's transferred in an inflationary environment. It's transferred from people who hold claims on paper assets to people who hold claims on hard assets. And we want to be on the receiving end of that transfer And I believe silver, uranium, and gold are the best avenues to fully exploit that and be on the receiving end. So I forgot your second question.
No, I was saying, well said. So then my question, because of that type of a statement, to bring it back to the empowerment instead of just having an idle theoretical or philosophical conversation about politics, which isn't right now. Everyone needs to get as rich as they can so they can pull out of the system. And so what do you think the end game of gold is? What's the end game?
Okay, so I don't like to measure in dollars because the dollar is an ever-changing unit of account. But if you just to play along with that game of what is the ultimate price target in silver and gold, if you just take the average of the previous two bull markets, and if you count the previous two as 1970 to 1980 and 2000 to 2011, just the average of those two would give you roughly $15,000 gold in 2026 and $300 silver in 2026. Now, I get that may sound extreme, and I'm not trying to get, sound sensational, but that's just math. That's just a repeat of the two previous bull markets. So those are my targets for 2026, roughly $15,000 gold and roughly $300 silver. Okay,
so for a stupid person like me, where does the 15,000 come from? How is that the math between the previous two markets? Let's break down how you came to that conclusion for yourself.
Excellent. So let's go. I'm going to do this from memory, so forgive me if I'm just a slight bit off here, but from 1970 to 1980, gold rose roughly 22-fold.
Okay.
In 2000 to 2011, gold rose roughly, I think it was 12-fold.
12-fold?
Yes. So if you average the two of those, 20 and 12, it's let's call it 15. So 15x if you just take the average return. And the average length of that bull market is 10 years.
Okay.
So we're looking at a 15x return on gold over 10 years. That's the average of the previous two. So gold bottomed in December of 2015. So let's just call it like January of 2016.
Okay.
So you project out 10 years from there. January 2016 brings you to January 2026. There's your 10 years. And 15x, the bottom in gold was 1,000. It was 1,050. Let's just call it 1,000. 15x that is 15,000.
Interesting. So that's where you got, because I know you've always stuck to that kind of an odd number, 2026. And I always wonder, where the hell do you get that number from? But so you're doing 10-year bull market starting at 2015, and you said the bottom was roughly $1,050. So then you're doing a bottom of 1,050 multiplied by 15x, and that's how you come up with that approximate 15,000 as a potential based off previous math.
Exactly. And then let's just say the gold to silver ratio only goes to 50-1, which I think it's going much lower. But a 50-1 gold silver ratio there gives you $300 silver.
Wow. Okay, so then let me ask you, sweet question, Steve, or sweet number, Steve, exciting, but you don't understand how manipulated gold and silver are, and you don't understand that if the price goes to that, then it's bad for the bankers and they don't want that to happen.
Oh, I love that question. So first, let me start by saying I am in the manipulation camp. These metals are the most manipulated markets on the planet, in my opinion, specifically silver. Well, they were also manipulated in the 1970s. I've gotten to speak with Jim Sinclair. They call him Mr. Gold. He's the guy who nailed the top in 1980, called it to the day. And so if it was manipulated then, it still went up. And from 2000 to 2011, it was also manipulated, and silver went to $50. So yes, it's manipulated. But I don't think that, I think they can manage the price. I don't think they can have absolute control over it. And then the second part of your question, when I got to speak with Jim Sinclair a few years ago, he told me one thing that stuck with me. I don't remember anything else specifically that he said, but he said, when this goes, the bankers will be on the right side of it. The bankers are going to get their money, and they're going to profit from the bull market. They're going to switch. They're going to, from making money in the bear market, and they're going to make money on the way up. I hate that, but it's probably very true. So I expect JP Morgan to make a fortune, unfortunately, when silver really gets going.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Some people just don't buy that, but that's why I asked you what the end game for gold and silver is too, and I made it more open ended. Your response to the end game was describing the end game price. I asked someone the other day, and theirs was that they believe that the central banks in the countries will play the other side of it due to having a reliquidation of the system. And he said that there is a clause in the U.S. Treasury handbook that allows the U.S. Treasury, the president, to sign off on any new price of gold, and then the difference based off of the alleged amount that they have in Fort Knox, they can use to reliquidate the system. And so he broke down, which he's like, I'm not saying they are going to do it, but he's saying, I've actually read the article in the U.S. Treasury handbook that states they can revalue the price and then pay off the debt or a percentage of it, and then use the rest of the liquidity to go pump, for instance, the Green New Deal or whatever other shenanigans they wanted to do. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And it makes sense at a certain point. It's just, when is that point? So, and then because it's like, well, why else are they buying it? That's what, like, I made those posts last week, and I'm like, think about, everyone's telling you to sell your gold now. They're running things telling you to sell your gold for crypto. Who's buying it? The central banks haven't stopped buying it. The countries haven't stopped buying it. China hasn't stopped buying it. Look at the graphs. The only people that are stopped buying it are everyday average people. The market is clearly being cornered. And then the question is, well, why are they doing that? Why are they buying it? Mm-hmm. And you have to say it has to be with something. And people say, well, they're going to invent some new crypto, and that's what they will release. Gold is obsolete. And to me, Ray Dalio had a quote recently. I'll send it to you. Actually, I've got it right here. I could probably find it on my phone. But what he said was, he was asked about Bitcoin, and this is what he said. This is a quote, as far as Bitcoin relative to gold, I have a strong preference for holding those things which central banks are going to want to hold in exchange value in which they are trying to transact. He's saying, I want the thing that the central bank, so there's a reason that they're doing it. And I think it's because even if there was some better system that the people made, the banks will then, I think, come in and say, no, gold is better. And they'll use the moral high ground and say, well, we're going to put honest money, but they're going to rewrite and control the whole system, and they own all the gold anyways. And so you think that the central banks and the larger powers that be, there is some type of an end game that they see involving involving metals? I
do, yes. Yeah, and I should have went there when you asked that question for endgame, because the price isn't really the endgame. The endgame is a new monetary system, and we know that. I mean, the title of the 2021 Davos conference, excuse me, is called the Great Reset. I mean, a reset is coming. A new monetary system is coming, and this is nothing new. I mean, there's a new monetary system every 30 to 40, 50 years. The last one was 1971 when the U.S. came off the gold standard, and that's when the rules of the game change. And I think eventually gold will become a formal part of the system. But I think that they don't want that, because gold inflicts discipline on them, and they don't want that. But they'll do it when there's no other choice. So I think a question I have is, will they try something else first, or will they go straight to introducing gold as part of the next system? And I just don't know. But you can actually go to like imf.org and read some of these white papers that these guys write, and they're pretty transparent, because they know not many people are going to imf.org to read their papers. And you can see that the kind of thoughts that they're bouncing around.
Like what?
There's some pretty extreme ideas out there.
Like what?
Well, certainly they're talking about blockchain. They're talking about gold as part of the system. And if you go to imf.org, just take a look at special drawing rights. Now, look, I'm not advocating for these. Whenever I mention special drawing rights, people come out and say, oh, that's more fiat. It's central bank money and everything. Yeah, I agree. But to me, it seems like special drawing rights is something that they're going to look to use to reliquify the global monetary system, whether that's next year or the year after or the year after that.
Speaking of Jim Sinclair, him and Bill Holter, they have their own personal viewpoint, and theirs that there'll be a monetary reset that's man-made at first, and then ultimately a reset with gold. They have some interesting thoughts. The Sinclair family he's from like a very like one of the top banking families in like actually in human history. Which is kind of, it's a little bit creepy, but like he has a lot of interesting things to say. He kind of became the white sheep of the family and went in the opposite direction. But on this subject, you were talking a bit about the petrodollar. You were talking about a wealth transfer that involves inflation. What do you see happening now? Do you see them just basically do you see more money printing than 2020? And do you see them just going to the shed with this until you have currencies collapsing maybe, or just, if that ever occurs, how do you see this playing out?
Great question. And a lot of gold and silver bugs think, okay, we're going to be going down to the store and trading our silver for groceries.
I do not think that.
Okay. I think it's an outside possibility, but it's certainly not my baseline expectation. That's something why I'm always going to have some silver on hand just in case, but that's not I think they will roll out a new system well before we get to that point. These people aren't stupid, they're smart. I think they're evil, but they're smart. So I think they roll out a new system before that, and I think it's going to come quick because they don't want to give people time to prepare for it. Like typically banking holidays and things like that, they're announced on a Sunday evening or a Friday night, when the market's closed, and boom, there's this big change. Like in 1971, for example, when Nixon took us off the gold standard, he came on TV, interrupted, I can't remember the TV show, but the TV show everyone's watching, and boom, made this, major announcement with no warning. So I think that's probably what's coming, and I think it's coming sooner probably than many people think.
So speaking of that, I've even heard some people argue the reason that there hasn't been stimulus yet is because they don't have this new system ready, and they've pretty much announced in these white papers and such that the central bank digital currency is coming out in January. And so they're just waiting to put everyone onto a new system. Does that sound like tinfoil land, or do you think that's in the realm of possibilities, or do you think that it's not that we're not 2, 3, 4 weeks away from it? It's something more down the line.
No, I think that's very likely to happen. In fact, I fully expect something just like that. That they want to be able to track every purchase you make. If they control the money, they control you. They control every aspect of human behavior. If they control your transactions, and there's been talk about being a blockchain based stimulus where people get a card and it's tracked. You can track your spending. Now, I fully believe that is coming, and I think it's coming soon. Whether it's attached to this first stimulus or not, I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Petrodollar. You were telling me off air that's that thing you've been doing a lot of research on. Tell me more about that.
Sure. Yeah, it's something that doesn't get talked about very often, and it's one of the biggest drivers of not only foreign policy, geopolitics, Middle East foreign policy, but also for the dollar. The dollar is the world's reserve currency. The rest of the world needs dollars. That's why they buy our treasuries, and they send us. The world sends the United States all the products and all the fruits of their labor in exchange for pieces of paper or zeros and ones that are created out of thin air. Why do they do that? Well, they do it because they need dollars to buy oil, because OPEC, namely Saudi Arabia, sells their oil in dollars. You need dollars to buy oil, and that's a result of the petrodollar agreement that Henry Kissinger brokered in 1973. And there's no further driver, no bigger driver of foreign policy and source of demand for dollars than the petrodollar system. And if that system were to end, if the OPEC stopped selling its oil in dollars, the dollar is toast. And we've seen what happens to countries that try to come off of that standard. Let's name a few: Iran, Syria, North Korea, Venezuela, Libya. Yeah, try selling your oil in something other than dollars, and that's what happens. And I don't want to get banned on YouTube for going too deep down that rabbit hole. But
well, why do you think that it might happen then? I mean, why? I thought that was it felt random to me when you said that to me. I've been looking at the petrodollar system. So why?
Well, it's just something I've been looking at that for years, and it's something I've been monitoring, and it's just been I've been prompted to. I felt the need to just remember that and go back and relook at that information. But why would that happen? The United States and the West, our interests are not aligned with the Saudi Arabia and OPEC nations. So they're being courted by Russia and China. Russia, China, other geopolitical opponents of the United States, they want that world reserve currency status. They want OPEC to sell their product in their currency. I think that's probably going to happen at some point.
If I was China or Russia or one of these other countries that didn't like the United States, or I was just a communist and I wanted to control the world, what I would do is China's like, we don't know how much gold they have, right? But they have a lot of gold and a lot of other commodities too. And so if I was China and Russia, I would institute a gold-backed current. I would announce how much gold they really have because no one knows how much they have. So I would announce how much I have, and I would say, and by the way, we are creating a new currency to trade in oil. And I would already have an agreement with a bunch of these countries in advance, and I would just announce it and roll it out. And I would be like, if anybody wants to enter into our system, come right in. And it would probably end in a my guess is that it would end in World War III unless the forces that really control America want that because they want to be a part of this globalist regime that China is the central power. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's a really savvy thought, and I agree that that's very possible. China certainly has much more gold than they say. They publicly say, I can't remember. I think it's 2 or 3, around 2,000 tons maybe. But that doesn't include what they hold in their sovereign wealth fund. It's called SAFE, the State Administration of Foreign Exchange, and that's kind of off the books gold. And that's where they pull the gold off the Shanghai Gold Exchange and store it there. So that gold isn't typically accounted for, but they have that. And there's a thesis by Jim Rickards that if China were to back the yuan with gold, that's going to massively, obviously, appreciate their currency, but they're going to have massive losses on their treasury holdings. So they want to wait till they can accumulate enough gold to offset the losses that will come from their treasuries when the dollar is devalued. So that's an interesting theory, and it's something that I certainly think is viable.
So how much longer till the gold and silver price goes back up, Steve?
I think we're clearly in the point where we're starting to turn around right here. I focus on charts and technical analysis, and to me, the most important indicator on a chart is the 200-day moving average. And the reason that line is so important is that's almost every institutional trading algorithm, every big money retail investor is looking at the 200-day moving average. And anytime you can get a price dips towards a rising 200-day moving average, that's typically a great place to accumulate. And we're sitting right above that rising 200-day moving average right now. So from a technical perspective, the charts indicate we're very close to a bottom if we haven't already seen one, which I tend to think we have.
What do we need to go back up?
So interesting. Today we're talking on Wednesday, and the silver price is trying to poke its head right above this downtrend channel that it's been in for 4 months. So a close above that today could be the start of a major trend reversal. Yeah, we'll have to see where we close the week, but things are looking good right here, right now. And the big level to watch in silver is $29.92. That was the high back in August. Once we get above $29.92, I think we'll be off to the races for a really nice push higher in silver.
What do you think we need for that to happen? Do we need more stimulus to come? Is there an event that needs to occur? Well, I mean, what has to happen?
Well, that's the beauty of charts, is that I think a price chart contains the most information density of any source of information you can look at, price and volume. And price and volume tend to precede the news. And what we see now is institutional accumulation, and we see the metal starting to curl up off that 200-day moving average. So what the catalyst is going to be, I don't know, but there's a million potential catalysts. I mean, they're going to do a stimulus bill. The Fed is going to have to monetize even more debt. Tavi Costa has been talking lately about how much debt the U.S. Treasury is going to have to roll over just in the next few weeks. That's going to have to be monetized in short order here. So the printing presses are going to have to ramp up even more, and that's going to have to happen very fast. So what the next catalyst is it a stimulus deal? Is it more money printing from the Fed on an accelerated pace? I'm not sure, but there's plenty of catalysts out there.
So for everyone listening, make sure you go to the description or link down below if you want to learn more about Steve's picks in gold and silver mining stocks, what he's buying, what he's selling, what he's trading, how to build your own portfolio. He breaks all that down, and he's got an awesome free newsletter. So we're going to end on the subject of gold there, and I want to talk about uranium. But before we shift in conclusion to uranium, I want to remind everyone, if you want to learn more about gold, silver, investing in it, mining stocks, go to the description or the link down below to the comments, and you can get his epic free report. Now, Steve, let's talk about uranium. Why is it interesting? Why is this time different? One of my buddies, smart guy, a really smart guy, he's got a big channel, Mark, he wrote me a DM and he said, you are very bullish on uranium. And I said, yes, super. And he said, he doesn't know that much about it, but he saw how a lot of my posts, and I think over a while, and he's like, wow, you're really into this. He said, everyone I've talked to says it's just, there's too much supply. It's not gonna happen. And Russia just dumps more supply on every time, and it's kind of done. So what are your thoughts on uranium?
Uranium is one of those sectors that the more research you do, the more bullish you'll become. That's just what happens. For our premium members, we had Lobo Tigre of Independent Speculator on last month. And I'm like, hey, Lobo, present to me the most bearish case you possibly can for uranium. And like, there isn't one. I've asked Justin Hune. I ask a lot of people, uranium experts, what's the bearish case here? And it's a when, not if question. The uranium price has to rise to incentivize the new production to meet the demand and the growing demand. And we're going to need much higher uranium prices. And what I really like about uranium is it's a pure supply demand story. And there is no getting around it, that mine supply cannot meet demand going forward. That's just a fact. There's going to be massive new mines are going to have to come online. And for that to happen, the price is going to have to rise. So that's the bottom line. Now, when that happens, to me, from my perspective, the biggest variable is the amount of secondary supply and above ground supply that was created in the wake of the 2011 Fukushima disaster. And the uranium market is very opaque. So getting data on how much secondary supply is actually available is not the easiest thing in the world. But the people who really spend their time doing this, who I trust, people like you've had on your channel, the data they're looking at suggests that secondary supply and that above ground surplus is almost gone. And so there's going to have to uranium price is going to have to rise to incentivize that new production. Okay,
number one, here's the best bearish case. Total EMP shutdown of the electrical grid, and everyone eats berries off their yard, and we light our houses with candles. That's my number one bearish scenario. Okay, number two, the secondary supply. Let's talk a little bit more about that. That's kind of the $1 million question, and that a lot of people that I talk to, almost nobody likes uranium, except for the uranium tribe on Twitter. Mm-hmm. But And the most common question or the most common criticism is the supply. So what are your thoughts on it right now and all the data you've looked at and the people you've spoken to?
So I'm going to use these numbers. I'm going to recall these numbers from memory. So there's a lot of really smart uranium people. So forgive me if I'm slightly off, but I believe uranium global demand is roughly 200 million pounds a year, and mine supply, secondary supply, underfeeding, or equates to roughly maybe 170 million. So that's about a 30 million pound a year shortfall, and that's been coming from this above ground, the surplus. Well, right now we're in an environment where Kazatomprom and Cameco, the two largest producers in the world of uranium, are going into the spot market to buy uranium to meet their obligations, to meet their contractual obligations. Think of a commodity where that's happening. There's no other commodity on the planet where the two biggest producers are buying in the spot market. So right there, I mean, that is a huge, enormously bullish factor for uranium. So I'll leave it there. I could keep going, but
yeah, it's nuts. I mean, it really is. It's hard to even grasp that that's happening on such an important commodity. And that's what's excited me to it as well. So, what are your expectations for it? I mean, if we're at 30 some odd bucks a pound or whatnot, and most people say we got to get to about 45 to 50 for most of these mines to come online. What are your expectations for it as an investment?
Yeah, those numbers seem to be the consensus. Around $50 a pound is the number to begin incentivizing new production, and I think that's probably going to happen towards the end of 2021 at least. And if and when that happens, I would think most of the share prices are going to, we could probably see doubles and triples, if not more. I try to avoid being sensational over the next 12 months, and that's pretty aggressive. It's pretty realistic. Now, as far as being a technical analyst, that's what I primarily look at is the charts. And what we've seen this last week in many of the uranium stocks, namely like Cameco, that's the big bellwether, we've seen breakouts above multi-year downtrend lines, above multi-year resistance, and that's significant in and of itself. But we've also seen that happen on record volume. This is the largest volume inflows we've seen ever into some of these uranium stocks. That is incredibly bullish. That's not retail investors. That's big money wanting exposure to this sector. That's institutions. And when they begin to accumulate, they don't just buy once and say, all right, I've got my position. They like to scale in over time. But the thing about the uranium sector is it is so small that for when big money wants exposure, these share prices are going to go absolutely berserk. I believe there's only roughly 60 or 70 primary uranium miners out there. That's a very small number of companies with very small market caps. So when big money starts to try and pile into these sectors, into these stocks, they're going to go ballistic.
So your expectation is you see this spot price moving. When I had Justin on the other day, he was saying, this rally will end if the spot price doesn't start moving. So what are your thoughts on that? And then also we saw yesterday, Cameco said they're shutting their mine down again, and some other Canadian company too ended up being two of the biggest miners. And then they said they were going to buy it off the spot market. So what are your expectations for spot price?
Yeah, I saw that interview with Justin, and that was phenomenal. And I agree. I think spot price is going to trend higher. I look at a chart of uranium futures every week, and I post it for our members, by the way. And what we see is it's in a 4-year uptrend channel, the price of uranium, and we've pulled back, and now we're right in the middle of that channel, and we're just starting to curl up off of $29 support. And sure enough, I think we're at like $31 right now, and price is rallying on news that Cigar Lake, that's Cameco's largest mine, is shutting down again because there's been some COVID cases at the mine. So I believe it's the world's largest mine. I could be wrong on that, but you've got the world's largest mine shutting down again. So Cameco is buying even more on the spot market, and that's obviously bullish for the spot price.
Yeah, honestly, I just have I'm not that's why I always, for the viewers, why I always tell you to sign up to people like Steve's stuff, which link is in the description and down below. Because I'm not this crazy technical guy. Honestly, the basic statistics and the data on the reactors coming online and everything, the supply and demand, it's just like, it's so like pour cold water on your face, amazing of an opportunity. And I personally just like have this intuitive feeling that our world is pure mania, and the financial markets are pure mania, and Wall Street and the banks are the most effed up, dirty, money pumping, shit bags in the world. And when they see this thing run, dude, I think someone's going to come. From what I heard from Justin was, and I don't know if this is 100% right, but one of the things that happened is the hedge funds started buying they started front running the utilities. I can't see why it's not going to be more mania this time than last time. And during the big bull run, there wasn't a supply deficit to the degree that there is now. I just can't see how this isn't. How this doesn't end up in total mania, especially with how much money is in the system, especially with traders and Robinhood and just like all the stimulus money that's going to be coming into these banks. They're going to be like taking non-existent $500 billion that the Fed just like slipped in their back pocket, and they're going to be dumping it everywhere. And so I'm super excited about it. I know you can't talk as much head in the clouds as I can because you're so much more technical and sound. But do you think? Please
go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah, just three quick comments. First of all, you're saying you're not as technically savvy, and I want to commend you because wisdom isn't knowing all the answers. Wisdom is asking the right questions, and that's why people are drawn to your show. You're asking the right questions at the right time, early on. So, I want to commend you for that. And then second of all, here's a quote from Rick Rule. I've got two quotes for you. Rick Rule says, either the price of uranium goes up or the lights go out. And that's very true. Nuclear accounts for roughly 20% of the baseload power of the United States, roughly 10% globally. The uranium price has to go up at some point. And I believe we're seeing that now. And then a Doug Casey quote, and forgive me if I don't get it exactly right, but he says, when big money tries to enter the uranium market, it's going to be the equivalent of trying to squeeze the contents of the Hoover Dam through a soda straw, because this market is so small when big money tries to enter.
It's nuts, man. Those are two great quotes. I love that. So then let me ask you on uranium. So I moved my portfolio. I started buying in like March, but I didn't know much about it. I just like had developed a relationship with Rick Rule, and like I know that's his legendary story, and I was like, oh my God, I should be buying these things. My biggest regret so far in my entire life is that I didn't get interested in investing in commodities 1 year earlier, because if I did, I'd be so rich right now from March till right then. I didn't know, I spent a decent amount of money on silver miners and uranium miners and gold miners, but I wish I would have done more. But even after this run in uranium, it's so cheap. Like some guy commented on my thing on Justin's video and was like, hey, idiot, you're like, why don't you pick something that will actually help us? You're way late to this. I bought all mine in April. And I was like, please be the idiot that says the market's over and is going to exit all your shares right before like 1,000% return in the market. Mm-hmm. Because like, I really do. Everyone talks about innings and things, but I mean, if the price is if these miners are still cheaper than they were in 2017 in uranium for the most part, and the price is still at $30 and it needs to get to at least 50 just to get the rest of these on. I mean, I really think this can be explosive. And because of that, I'm probably at about 30% now in my uranium portfolio. So I've definitely moved some money around, and I don't care on pullback right now, to be honest, because I'm anticipating, I'm truly anticipating all of these things being 10 baggers. I mean, and if we get a $50 or $45 move to the spot price by the end of next year, I definitely I'd be angry at them if they didn't all at least 3X, if there was a move to that price. So, what is your personal allocation to metals, to uranium, and also as it pertains to Silver Chartist when someone signs up for the newsletter?
Yep. So I personally allocate 20% of my portfolio to uranium miners. And I knew there was going to come a day where I wish that was more, and we're starting to get there. But silver's going to get moving here too. And I like 20% for me. And the reason I do that is because I've been studying silver for so much longer. I know that market inside and out. And I know, I've been studying uranium as well, but silver is the thing I've been studying for so long. And by the way, thank you for endorsing the report. And yeah, it is free. There's a free report down below. And what I try and do, it's not your typical e-letter where I try and spam you with all kinds of junk. And my philosophy is I like to provide people with tons of value for free. And we do have a premium membership. It's very affordable. We keep it very cheap for everyone. But my thought process is I give you tons of value for free. There's a good chance that over time you'll see value and you'll say, you know what, I'm going to try his premium service. And if that's not for you, that's totally fine too. But in those reports, I not only give my full portfolio, I show people exactly what I hold. For the premium members, I call it a fully transparent over-the-shoulder service with real-time alerts. Every time I push the buy or the sell button in one of my long-term accounts, I tell the members about it. It's fully transparent, and it's not advice. But if you see what I'm doing, hopefully that can help people to make wiser decisions in their own portfolio and help to shape their own thinking. So that's a little bit about the letter.
Yeah, no, it really is. I am super. I mean, even the free version is better than everybody's paid stuff. I really think that. I mean, it's just the free alone. So I want to encourage everyone to go to the link in the description or the comments and sign up, because we need someone that's went through it, and we need someone that actually takes seriously what they're teaching. There's a lot of even free newsletters that are very half-assed. And, I think this is really the greatest opportunity of wealth transfer in history. And if us peasants are prepared, we can really move up the ladder here. So in conclusion, give me your best ways to prepare for this wealth transfer.
Excellent. So the easy answer is to be positioned in hard assets. In an inflationary depression or in an inflationary environment, you want to hold hard assets. So that's number one. But a lot of people learn that stuff, and you think it's easy to overdo it. Now, I think you want to have a decent amount, but when I first learned about this stuff, 10, 15 years ago, I'm selling stuff. I had very little savings. So be wise about it. I say avoid consumer debt.
You sold your cat, didn't you?
If I had a cat, I would have sold it. But yeah, avoid consumer debt. Live below your means. These are basic things. You talk about creating multiple streams of income. There's never been a better environment to create income streams online. It takes a little bit of time to learn, but these are all things people can do. Become more resilient. I think resiliency is the key thing in this environment. You want to be resilient. You don't want to live with such little margin. And another big one is, personally for me, I'll just say I want to live in a place where it's a little bit more rural and the population density is lower. I think cities and packed environments like that are going to be a tough place to be going forward, unfortunately.
Okay, so tell me one thing. No, tell me the best piece of investment advice you ever got.
Let's see, advice. Well,
either from somebody else or from your own experience, because you've made a lot of money during the last market. You didn't really lose it because you held on to it, but you've went through all the ups and downs as an investor, and you've become very successful, and you've also built this community helping a lot of people. So what's the best things that have changed your life, or the best investment advice, either from direct experience or something you learned from a mentor or a book?
Okay, so we had my mentor on, Jerry Robinson, the other day on our premium. We do mastermind calls for the premium members every month. And he said something to me a long time ago when I was learning technical analysis. He said there's two things that changed my tax bracket, and one of them was learning how to read a price chart. And just learning the basics of support, resistance, price, and volume can give you such an advantage when it comes to investing or trading. I don't advocate everyone trade. I trade a small portion, but trying to focus on fundamental analysis requires you to rely on research that's it's not information dense. I can get more information out of one price chart than I can from reading a 10-page report. So learning to read the basics of technical analysis is something that changed my tax bracket as well.
And I guess that's really what your part of your service is that you do with Silver Chartist is that's the over the shoulder where you break down, the charts, the graphs, and all the foreign language stuff that most of us don't understand.
It is, and I keep it very simple. Technical analysis does not have to be as complicated as most people make it sound. It can be very, very simple and very easy to understand.
All right. Tell me one thing you're grateful for or excited about right now.
Oh, I have so much to be grateful for. Number one, my faith in God. I always am thankful for my faith, for God. I'm a Christian. I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for my family. I've got beautiful children. I've got an amazing wife who supports me doing all these crazy things I do, and I'm grateful that to have been put in a position where I've learned this information ahead of time, and I'll be hopefully in a position to help others going forward. I have so much to be grateful for.
All right, beautiful stuff. Okay, everybody. So make sure you hit the like button on either side right there. Leave a comment down below and let us know what you think of this video. In the description right there down below is Steve's free newsletter for Silver Chartist, where you can learn some amazing things about gold, silver, and uranium and the wealth transfer. So the description right there down below or the comments has the link. If you want to see some more awesome stuff for Steve, I should have announced this at the beginning, Steve, but I didn't. So I don't know how many people are listening on the 60th minute of the episode, but we're going to be having some awesome guest posts with Steve. Steve's going to have his own segment on the I Love Prosperity brand, where he's going to be breaking down a lot of awesome stuff with his investment eyes and the things that he's watching right now. So we got that coming up, and we're going to start having Steve on once a week. So for everyone listening, if there's something that you want us to discuss as a topic, or things that you want to ask Steve, we're going to start having Steve's going to basically be a regular part of the brand. He's going to be entering the digital family. So if you want to see certain things, if you have certain questions, whether it's about exit strategy or how he analyzes stocks or where he thinks the price of something's going to go, or macroeconomic things, or personal finance and Steve's own journey, any questions at all, I'm excited to have Steve part of everything and to continue to grow the brand with Steve. So leave those comments down below for us all, and Steve and I will definitely go back through and source them for future episodes as well. Anything else, Steve?
No, super excited to come on your channel more. I can already tell, the people, some of your audience has come over to Silver Chartist support already, and I've gotten to interact with them. You've got awesome people. You attract really awesome followers, and your people are the people I want to serve and I want to help. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Okay, awesome. So go to the link right there down below to sign up for his free newsletter. And the next time we talk, I think silver is going to be at $1,000. So I'm expecting a big rally here shortly. So we'll talk soon, Steve.